Hello. Not our favorite game, and so thus, we're going to basically ignore it. That is the plan today. I don't even really feel like talking about that game. I will just get off my chest what I wanted to say about that game, and it's basically that the Golden Knights kind of stunk coming out of the gates. And, when they finally picked it up, they really didn't generate much in regards to transition. And I think that just goes back to an inability to win board battles in the offensive zone today. They just were not doing enough, or in the defense. I guess it would be more so the defensive zone now that I think about it. They just didn't do enough. And so you end up with a game where you're kind of just not really going until it's too late. And then you've got a team that's, scratching and clawing for points. They end up getting across the line. Not really a ton to take from it. I mean, I do feel like we have had a little bit of a recent run of not necessarily getting the same result as the performance. I would say today the performance matched the result. The beginning of the game against Montreal, I would say the performance matched the result. They deserved to win that game for how good they were early in the game. But as the games, the games before that, I feel as though it hasn't really gone exactly that way. So it is what it is. Just make sure if you're the Golden Knights, you do not allow this to kind of derail the entire trip. You can't allow this to make you play terribly at the beginning of the game against Tampa and then poorly at the beginning of the game against Carolina, because you really don't want to start this thing 0-3 before the travel really kicks in. Like, the travel's real easy at the beginning of this. It then does kind of kick up when they have to fly from Carolina to St. Louis on a back-to-back and then fly all the way over to Philly, and then they're coming all the way back, and then there's some road games on the back end of that. So, it's you don't want to let this thing spiral, because who knows? You really don't want to fall down too far down the standings. So that's about all I have to say about this game. So we'll get into the questions. And if you do have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I prefer to take the ones that are in the chat here, whether that's YouTube or Facebook, as opposed to taking the ones that I took on Twitter. But we will start with the ones on Twitter because I don't see any in the chat yet. And we'll start with, but seriously, what has changed to make Adin Hill so effective right now? And then someone else asked, is this Hill's net to lose? I don't think anything has changed. I think it's always been in Adin Hill that he can have good games. I think a lot of this has just been confidence in regards to you're the starter at the moment, I would say. Like, I was hesitating on that word because I was kind of hoping that I could come up with a better word instead of that. But I do think that we're in a position where he's getting more consistent reps. He's a little bit more confident in there, but I don't think that this dominant portion of his game is going to suddenly be what we get out of Adin Hill. I don't think all of a sudden he's turned some corner and is some superstar goalie at this point. I think you're getting a good portion of what he can be. And somebody said in there that, yeah, he is heading into free agency, and therefore here we are needing a good run here. He's getting it at the moment. I think he is going to get some more money in free agency, whether that's with Vegas or not. Does he keep the net? Obviously, I think for now, he would remain the starter for as long as he can play at least halfway decent. I think he would have to completely fall off the cliff. However, we've seen that in the past, that we have seen some situations where guys have fallen off the cliffs. It is certainly possible. I don't think it's going to be quick, nice, to take Hill's job. I don't think that can happen fast. I think it has to be 5, 6, 7, 8 games that Jonathan Quick plays. And then there also has to be poor games from Hill along the way in that. So I don't think that that's going to happen fast. I keep wanting to say quick, but I'm saying fast. So yeah, I think it is his goal. When Thompson were to come back, I think they go into a rotation right away if Hill's playing like it is right now. I don't think that Thompson has completely lost the starting job by solely being injured. I just don't think that that's going to be the case at the moment. What concerned you most tonight? What concerned me most tonight was the inability to adapt to a problem that I thought was possible that when they were coming in. So when you really look at the way that these two teams match up, there's a couple of things that you'll notice, one of which is Vegas likes to exit the zone using the walls. That's their first option. They have the ability to hit that, twirling center up through the middle where he does that sharp cut and comes up the middle. You hit it off the boards and they get a nice transition chances off of that all the time. That was going to have to be there today, and it wasn't. And so the issue I had was we knew coming in that the walls were potentially going to be an option. I tweeted it like 2 minutes into the game. As the game went on, it became really clear that the Panthers were going to be super aggressive, jumping down the walls to try and take those plays away, jump in front of the forwards that are the wingers that are standing on the walls for the Golden Knights, and try to force these possessions to be as long as physically possible. And the Golden Knights kind of succumbed to it in the first 20 minutes, a little bit in the first 8 to 10 in the second period. And my hope was that they would start to understand, okay, this is not working. We can't just play that way. We're not going to actually beat them along the walls today, because the hope is that you hit it along the walls, you catch them aggressive, you knock a play pass, and now you've got a 2-on-1. Didn't really happen. And so I thought I wanted to see adaptation right there, and we didn't see it. And so when you get 60-something games into the season and you have a roster that's fairly similar to the one that the Golden Knights are going to go into the playoffs with, when things stick out as this works against the Golden Knights, you're going to see that more and more and more into the playoffs. And I thought this was one that we knew was coming. It then came, it then was hurting them, and they did not really adjust to it. Even in the third period, there were constant times where we would see the puck go up the boards, and it just was not working. So that would be my main concern with today, is you don't want there to be a book out on you. I don't think that's completely the book on the Golden Knights. However, that's going to be part of it. To play well against the Golden Knights, you want to take away their breakouts against the wall. If you can do it successfully, you can hem them in, and then you inevitably get chances where they're a little bit more stretched out. That's something the Golden Knights have done a really good job of most of the season. They did not tonight, is not allow players into the center of the ice to get scoring chances. It wasn't right in front of the goalie, which we've seen in the past where it's literally 2-3 feet away. It was more 8 to 10, 12, something like that in that low slot area. Can't really have that. And I think that was also a product of forcing the puck up the walls. Defensemen are far out. Wingers are far out. The center's the only one in the middle of the ice. You're gonna get caught at some point. Here's the next one. Where has Chandler Stevenson been? He's been invisible. I can't get that one off. There we go. Yeah, Chandler Stevenson has not been very good. It's been a while now. I think there's been moments where we've seen he's on the transition chances and it's just not necessarily coming off for him. I agree. We need to see more out of him. I thought that we were headed towards, before the Carrier injury, that Carrier-Stevenson-Kessel line was heading downward. I think we're now officially there with Cotter on that line. I don't think they have all the aspects that can be a good line offensively and defensively consistently against deeper teams in the NHL, which is what you're trying to find at this moment, understanding that we need to find that third line heading into the playoffs. What you do to switch that, it's tough, because Barbashev's actually been pretty good up there with Eichel. I thought he was a little less effective today, made the good play at the end of the game that I thought nearly was going to give them a chance to tie it. But for the most part, little less effective today. Eichel not shooting the puck today, not sure what was going on there. He just refused to shoot. He does get the assist on the one power play goal, but for the most part, their power play was not good. Yet again, I have a bunch of questions on that. Will Lehner ever play again as a Golden Knight? Does he even want to? I will say yes to both questions, and a stronger yes to the second question. I absolutely believe Robin Lehner wants to continue his career in Vegas with this team. I don't know what's going to happen with all the bankruptcy stuff. I don't understand what the impact that will have on his career or on his living situation or any of it. I'm not really sure. I don't think it'll have a huge effect on what will happen in regards to, can he come back into the league, or can other, there are legal issues with other teams. I don't necessarily think we have that. But what I do think is that he is going to want to continue making money on this contract. He is going to want to earn another contract behind this, because I think, based on what I understand from bankruptcy, I'm assuming all of what has already happened to this point in his career is now wiped out. So he's starting from square one again, he's going to want to play not only these 2 years, but then moving forward. I think he comes into camp. Whether he's healthy is a different question. We will see. He's going to have plenty of time to rehab himself going all the way throughout this entire year and heading into next year. You have to believe he's going to want to come in ready. I have to think he's probably going to be healthy coming into the beginning of the season. How long it lasts, I don't know. But my guess is yes, Robin Lehner will start another game for the Golden Knights. I believe it will be game 1 of next season. I think he will be the starter or at least a considered option in starting in training camp. And I believe he will be the starter heading into game 1 of next season. Do I think that's a massive favorite? No, but that's my guess at this moment. Who do you want to face in the playoffs? Looking over it, we kind of did this a little bit yesterday, and I'll kind of look over it again right now. I like the matchup against Seattle. I've seen enough of Seattle, both against the Golden Knights and against other teams. And I understand that one game, I was in Qatar for that game. I did rewatch that game. They kind of just were all over the Golden Knights in that game earlier this season, the one that the Kraken won. But for the most part, when you watch the Kraken play hockey, it's usually trade chance style of play, and they will give up odd man rushes. They are not very good at just kind of locking things down. If anything, they do try the shot suppression thing, and they're not really all that elite at it. I think they're a good team. I think they can score. I think they're deep. I like some things that they can do. I don't think that would be an easy series, but of all the teams, of the 8 teams that I think are going to make the playoffs, and Calgary not being one of those 8, I believe that the most likely team that they can beat is Seattle. Behind that, I would take Winnipeg next. The only thing that really scares me about Winnipeg is the goaltending. I think if you get in a playoff series and Hellebuck gets going, maybe you end up not winning that series, because I do think it's possible the Golden Knights scoring is going to go dry yet again. Actually, more than possible. I think that's actually highly probable that the Golden Knights scoring goes dry. We saw a little bit of it tonight, a little tighter of a game. This was a team that was really skating. I think today you can kind of throw out a little bit because the Golden Knights skating wasn't quite at the level that it normally is. But yeah, I think Winnipeg's another team that they're going to give transition chances. They're not all that good defensively. You want that. You want to be able to have that type of team that the Golden Knights are going to be able to score on. And I think Winnipeg's the next best. Behind them, I would take Minnesota. I think they're the least deep, shallowest of the teams, I guess I would say. Obviously, the Fleury aspect of that could potentially be problematic. I don't know that he's going to be that good in the playoffs that it's going to be all that much of a problem, but you know how that goes. Same thing why, I don't want to deal with Quick against LA for the same reason. It goes both ways. It can go well, it can go poorly. It's your classic rivalry game. If you're an NCAA basketball fan, you never want a rivalry game in a tournament because you just don't know. Even if you have the better team, you just don't know. And so that's kind of where I look at on that. And beyond that, I think LA would be an interesting matchup. I don't think the Golden Knights would be favored in my mind. I think they would be favored on paper in that matchup. I don't think that they would be favored in my mind. What I'm excited about for that matchup, because I think that's actually the one that is going to happen, whether that's in the first round or the second round, is that stylistically, the two teams are super different. Like the Golden Knights play this zone defense. The Golden Knights play a very locked up through the neutral zone. They're very much trying to get forward anytime they have the puck. Meanwhile, the Kings are trying to really spread the game out. They'll bring the puck back into their own zone. They stop behind the goal a lot. They do a lot of things that are different than what the Golden Knights do. And I think it would be a super interesting series just to see the tactical battles as we go on through that series and how that would go. But I think in the end, the two groups of skaters to me are not that far off. There are massive differences in how the two teams are constructed, but I don't think they're actually that far off. And then I think the goaltending might end up being better for the Kings. So that series is a bit of an issue. We'll see. I don't like their chances against Dallas. I do not like their chances against Edmonton. I do not like their chances against Colorado. If I had to pick one of those, I would pick Edmonton as the most likely team of those three that they can beat, solely because I don't think they defend well enough to keep the Golden Knights off the board. If the Golden Knights can get on the board early in games against Edmonton, it's possible that they can shut it down and figure it out, just basically defending their way and taking their opportunities as they come. Would be an interesting series. I don't love their chances in that series, but I like them better. Colorado, it's only if they're super banged up. If they're super banged up, I like the chances. If they're not, I don't. And then I don't like the chances against Dallas really at all, and I don't love that Max Domi is there either. Even though they scored on the power play, they haven't found a consistent power play strategy for years. How would you design a power play for this collection of players? So for me, I would draw it up through Eichel holding the puck on that half wall. I would probably try to have more traffic coming towards the goal. The Golden Knights kind of sit in their spots, and then there's a reason why Eichel doesn't want to take that shot, because it's going to be awfully difficult to get it through. And then if it gets blocked down, it's basically four guys collapsing down on Stevenson, and then Smith and or whoever else it happens to be, whether that's Carlson or Marchessault. It's been Barbashev, Wah at different times, whoever it is. I think it was Smith underneath on that one today. If you put it towards there, it's unlikely Stevenson's going to win that, and the guy's poking from the outsides, you're going to end up getting rid of it. So what we're trying to set up, for me, if I were trying to set this up, is we would be active. We would be aggressive. We would be active in trying to have players off the puck, moving their feet, changing positions, opening up different angles, and trying to move players away from the middle of the ice. If we can do that, then we can potentially open up that slot area a little bit more and replace it with whoever it happens to be. I think over the course of time, that's going to be what we see more of. We saw it actually today, where Eichel drifted up to the top all the way at the high slot. Pietrangelo drifted down to the right, and everyone kind of cycled around. I want to see more crisscrossing, more exchanging, more types of things that allow us to say, look, if Eichel has the puck, we don't care how many people you throw at him. We don't care what we have behind him. It doesn't matter. If Eichel has it, you're not getting it from him, and he's going to get a pass off to someone. We have to make it a difficult pass so that we open up seams to make it so that that pass then leads to the goal. We have not seen enough of that. I don't think that is the way that Cassidy has designed his power play. I don't think that's the way that this power play is going to operate for the remainder of this season. I think they're going to keep doing what they're doing, hoping for quick passing, hoping for pucks off the sticks quickly, shots on goal, converge near the goal, and get the puck in on the rebound. I think that's going to be the plan. I do not expect this power play to improve all that much over the course of the remaining 20, 18, whatever, 19 games that are left, nor into the playoffs. I think it'll actually get worse in the playoffs because of the fact that they're going to have issues with teams really scouting them and figuring out what they're going to do. I'm working on doing a video with Dr. Pinniger, so I don't have a ton of information on Carrier yet. We're working on doing a video. Hopefully that happens in the next couple of days. Also, why not take Eichel off the power play? I probably should have pressed that one as I was talking about that before. The reason you don't take Eichel off the power play is because he's easily the most impactful player that they have still in the lineup. Like, his shot is dangerous. His entries are dangerous. His ability to back check if you do end up in a situation where you do give up something going the way is very good. I think the biggest part that Eichel's not getting credit for on the power play, and I will readily admit, I'm a huge proponent, or like, I don't even know what the word of saying that Eichel's making the power play worse. He's making the in zone power play worse. I think we underrate the fact that this team's actually pretty good at entering the zone, and Eichel's a huge reason for that. That's step one on a power play. If you can't do that, you're not going to be all that good. And so that becomes an issue as we go forward, is if you were to take him completely off, then we have all sorts of issues. And I don't even want to think about what this power play looks like if they struggle even a little bit to enter. By the way, this Periscope and all Periscopes this season are brought to you by Conler & Associates CPAs. Tax day is April 18th. just over a month away. It's March 7th. Tax day is April 18th. We're not that far off. If you need any help with your taxes, unemployment taxes, gambling taxes, crypto gains, gambling taxes, any of that good stuff, or if you just have a simple tax situation and you have questions, go to condlercpa.com, KONDLERCPA.com. Tell them SinBin sent you. They will hook you up with a free consultation. They'll answer all your questions and throw some Golden Knights questions at them too. They will answer all those as well because those guys love them some Golden Knights. I'm reading this one right. I asked this a while ago, but do you have plans for a SinBin VGK road trip? I think that would be fun. It's a little bit tricky still to kind of figure out when and how and where we're going to do it, how we go about it, renting the bus, that type of thing. If we end up doing it that way, I think we'd be better off doing like a full caravan situation where anybody who wants to go kind of shows up somewhere, probably would be CNA. And then we all hop in each other's cars and take the least amount of cars we could possibly take down to Arizona, Anaheim, or LA. I think that would be fun. I would love to do that at some point. I do not have anything of that sort in the works for the moment, but I think that would be really cool. Is Lehner a good fit for Cassidy's system? Yes, he would be basically the best type of fit for Cassidy's system. Like, big goalie, not a lot of movement, not a lot of rebounds sit in front of him. And when they do, he's such a big guy, it's hard to get the puck through. There's not a lot of risk in the Lehner style of game, which is something that's beneficial for having behind the Cassidy system. He's not great seeing through screens. That's one of the issues we kind of had over the course of the last few years. I think he can be better there, or maybe, that's just part of the game you have to deal with. So I do think he's the best fit of the players that the Golden Knights have on the current roster. It's just he has to be healthy. If he's not healthy, then you're not getting peak or anything close to Robin Lehner, and then he's probably not the best fit. Will we see Mark Stone for the playoffs? My guess remains no. And then again, I'll walk through why my guess remains no. And that is, I do think at some point in I don't even know if I want to call it near future. I would say within the next 8 weeks, I think he is going to get back on the ice. I think then from there, they're going to ramp up the skating. They're going to ramp up the conditioning. They're going to try to figure out, is this actually worth it to put him back into the games? And I think inevitably over the course of that time, when he's trying to ramp it back up, there's going to be discussions of what happens if another back injury were to happen to him. And that discussion is going to use the word career. And when you hear that, you're probably going to want to be a little bit safer to say, do we really want to push this for right now? If they get to the Western Conference Final, they get to the final, maybe we start deciding, you know what? I am willing to push that. I'm going back in there. I think maybe, but I think it has to come at least 3 rounds in, if not all 4. And I think just the simple discussion of what's going to happen, of what if you get hurt again, that I think is going to end up scaring them. Speaking of the NCAA tournament, Mizzou to the Sweet 16, obviously, for those who follow basketball, be careful with picking for or against Mizzou. I've watched every single game this season. They are weird. They can beat anybody. They can lose to anybody. And I really mean that. Like, I think they could smoke Purdue, and I think they could absolutely lose to that team from the Atlantic Sun that got in for the first time ever yesterday. Kennesaw State, maybe. I think they're going to be interesting. So look at the matchups. If you want help on what Mizzou's going to do, look at the defensive efficiency of the team they play against. If the team Mizzou plays against defends, Mizzou's going to struggle. If they don't, Mizzou will win. What gives you your best hope for the playoffs? Seems almost certain we will make it. So what might be an optimistic view? So the most optimistic view is finishing first or second and getting Seattle. I think that's the best case scenario beyond anything else. I don't see a better option, and that includes Calgary, who still no score in that game. Don't really want Calgary to win that game. If Calgary gets going here, things could get a little bit tricky. But I think you want Seattle first, and then beyond that, I think the optimistic view is Jack Eichel's built for the playoffs. We haven't seen him one way or the other, so we don't really have data on that at this point. I think there is a possibility that he does fit, so that, that the speed is going to be something that is not able to be taken away in a postseason series, and you're kind of always chasing him throughout the entirety of the series. I would imagine he's kind of locked in for the entire playoffs. That would be the hope. So that's kind of the optimistic view. The other thing is, like, they have to be healthy. I think if they're fully healthy with all 6 defensemen, you've got a shot on any given night to have a good game defensively, to break the puck out well, to get not a lot of high danger chances against them. And maybe that, they don't take a lot of penalties. Maybe the power play is a little bit better. I don't see a team in the Western Conference that the Golden Knights absolutely cannot beat. I do see some teams in the Eastern Conference that I definitely do not think they could beat, certainly not early in a playoff. But if the Golden Knights get 12 wins and are there at 12-6 or 12-7, 8, whatever it happens to be, to get them all the way to the Stanley Cup final, we're going to feel like there's an absolute chance. So that's kind of the optimistic look of, like, Eichel's going to be good. You're going to get a little bit more out of the Misfits offensively. Stevenson can be a little bit better. The hope would be we're going to get Stone back all the way down the line. The goaltending has really not been as much of an issue. So the hope is that that will continue not being a problem. And then the defense being as healthy as physically possible. If they're able to do that, they can defend at a high enough level that they can make things happen. What is Ken's favorite restaurant in Vegas? Obviously, the answer is Giordano's, because they sponsor SinBin, and they're fantastic. Naturally, Giordano's is a pizza place, and Giordano's is spectacular. I'll eat it any day of the week. However, it's not a high-end restaurant. That is what I think you're asking me for. So I'll give you a couple of them. I love Echo and Rig at Tivoli Village. I think that's fantastic. I would argue I would say my 2 favorite restaurants on the Strip are right next to each other. Like, you could literally throw a paper airplane from one to the other, and that's Zuma and Jaleo at Cosmopolitan. Jaleo is like Spanish tapas. The paella is ridiculously good. The chicken croquettes are phenomenal. They have like a meat and cheese board that's spectacular. Like, place is awesome. And then Zuma, if you're sushi, I'm not into sushi, but sushi's phenomenal there from what I've been told. I get I get like this soy marinated steak that's a little spicy. It is out of this world. It's like this tenderloin thing is spectacular. All right. What about the intangible consequences of bringing back Lehner? Would it make the locker room camaraderie worse or better? I actually think it will get better. The reason I say that is because I think that everyone's going to understand the human interest story behind Robin Lehner. That whatever you want to believe about how we got to the situation we got to, everybody likes a comeback story. Everybody likes the underdog story. And I think if he were to get back in there and be even close to the goalie that he used to be, I think he's going to be a hell of a story, both in their own locker room and across the league. I think people are going to be excited to say, like, this guy made some mistakes or put himself in a position that he didn't want to be in. He ended up having to basically be publicly shamed for it, which is what bankruptcy effectively is. And now he's putting himself back in the limelight. He's having a good season. I think the story there would be spectacular. And I think the guys would play for him pretty hard. I don't think anyone's ever really hated. I don't think anyone's really hated Robin Lehner at any point. I have not eaten at E inside of Jaleo. It might be or I don't know. I haven't. I'm not a big prefix menu type of guy. There's a lot of flavors out there that I don't like, and I'm not big on fruits or vegetables, which tend to be in all of those. I don't mind vegetables for the most part, but fruits, I don't like most fruits. It's weird. So like prefixed menus usually suck for me because they don't have the things that I want. I'm better off ordering all the things I want, and I'm not a horribly expensive outside of, like, I love me some A5 Wagyu sushi. That's always, that gets a little expensive, $25 a bite or so. That's a little rough, but outside of that, my tastes are not super expensive, so I don't necessarily need the prefix stuff. All right, what other questions were asked here? Somebody said, assuming Thompson is ready to play for the playoffs, do you think they dress Hill as the backup and scratch Quick? I don't. I think that they will not scratch Jonathan Quick no matter what happens. So if Thompson's the starter, it'll be Thompson and Quick. If Hill's the starter, it'll be Hill and Quick. If Thompson and Hill are both healthy, they're going to make their decision and they're going to leave Quick on the bench. I think that he's going to be on the bench throughout the entirety of the playoffs. Who is your player of the year for the Golden Knights? I think at this point it's Alex Pietrangelo. I think there's a chance Shea Theodore steps up and steals it. I would argue that if Eichel continues to have the run that he's been on for the last, 14 games or so, if he does that for the remaining 18, he has a shot to go in and take it. I think Stevenson's kind of lost his run there. I wouldn't take any of the goalies. Maybe Carrier. Yeah, Carrier is a good shout from Nick there. Player of the year, I think I need a little bit more impact, and now Carrier is seemingly gone for the rest of the year, so it's going to be tough for him to win it down the stretch. But I'm leaning like Theodore, Eichel, Pietrangelo would be my three. First season you participated in the playoff beard and we went to the Cup Finals. Would you do it again if you knew it was good karma? Absolutely, I will not. There is no situation in which I will ever do a playoff beard again, ever. I promise you, never again. I cannot deal with hair on my face for more than a week. It is the worst. I don't understand how people have beards. Maybe people's beards are different than mine. I don't know. But that goddamn thing itched for the entire playoff run that season. It never stopped itching the whole time. It was horrible. I had beard oil. I had a comb. I had all this crap going on. It was the worst. Never again. I don't think it affects hockey at all for me. However, and yes, maybe Nick is right that I have a hair aversion. This one is not really my decision. But the other one, yes, I have an aversion to my beard on my face. Shit hurts, and it never stopped hurting. And everyone says this. Oh, it'll get better. Give it some time. I had the goddamn thing for 2.5 months, and it never got better. In fact, it only got worse every single day. It got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and it never got better. Never again. I will never, ever, 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 under any circumstance, grow a beard again. I'm not doing it for charity. I'm not doing it for playoffs. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to become some sort of actor. It's not happening. Not happening ever again. Is Eichel ever going to be a 100-point player? I will say no. I don't. Well, wait a minute. He's not going to be a 100-point player this season. I'll tell you that. I think if you were to get him 82 games, the way the league seems to be headed, it does seem like it's certainly possible that he could potentially get there in the future. But I still think it's hard for him, the way he plays, the size, the speed he plays at. I think it's hard for him to play 82 games. So it's going to be awfully difficult. I just don't see it happening. And no, I will do other things to raise money for charity. Just because some people raise beards or have beards for charity doesn't mean I have to. Yes, I guess eyebrows. I do have fairly thick eyebrows. I think that's it. I don't see any other questions over here. Why do VGK fans act like the world is ending with a loss? It happens every time we lose. That's a question, and then it got deleted, so maybe he didn't want to. Oh, then okay, it came back up here. Because the Golden Knights fans want them to win. That's step one. That's just the way that things go. All of these, that's just sports. You get mad when your team loses. I don't think that people actually believe the world is going to end. I think there are the occasional rare birds on Twitter and other places and all of this that they get super mad and whatever. I think the bigger piece is Golden Knights fans are so used to all of the coverage of their team being so utterly positive that when anyone's upset about things like lingering issues, things like the power play lingering, things like inability to score at different times, potential issues and pitfalls like goaltending, like depth, like injuries, these types of things. And when you see games that kind of confirm a lot of those fears, people will then bring that up. And we end up with a situation where people get super pissy and say, well, that's what's going to happen down the stretch. And whether they're right or not, if you're one of the optimistic type of fans that you don't think that way, then you think that person's being negative and it's only because of the loss. That game just go into overtime. Oh, is that what happened? Yeah, all right. So the game's going into overtime. The Flames game. I don't think that for the most part the Golden Knights fan base is any worse than any other fan base when they lose. I do think that the people who tend to follow me and are in Discord and listen to my opinions over the course of the season, and whether they're impacted by my opinions or not, I feel like most people can make their own opinions. You hear the things I'm talking about, you hear how I'm backing them up, and then if you feel like doing your own research or not, a lot of the things I've said were probably going to happen this season have actually come true. Some of them have not. The goaltending issue has not necessarily come true. They have had their scoring issues. They have had their health issues. They have been inconsistent. And so the belief of like this is suddenly just going to go away, the realistic fan doesn't really believe that. And I think there are more and more fans now that we're six seasons in that understand it's not always going to go your way. You become more and more and more cynical as you follow a team over the course of time. You've seen the playoff failures. You've seen the health issues. You've seen the different issues that they've had. And you become more cynical to say, look, that game and that game and that game indicate that that's probably what's going to happen again. That's a lot of how a lot of fans are in a lot of sports. Like this is not new to Golden Knights fans. This is not new to Vegas. It's not anything. That's how a lot of people view it. Some people, and there's a lot of people that view everything's going to be rosy. And like we talked about on the podcast, it's the hope that kills you. You always find that hope, that reason that it's going to be better or get better. And if you feel like if you're that type of fan, more power to you. I personally am not. And I also think there's an important note for me and how I cover the team and how I respond about the team. I only care about one thing. I only care about winning the Stanley Cup. I do not care if you win your division. I do not care if you make your playoff game. I don't care if you make it to the Stanley Cup final. I do not care about any of it except winning the Stanley Cup. Are you winning it this year, or are you getting close next year or the following year or the following year? When are we winning the Stanley Cup? That's all I care about. So when I see warts that make them the 8th best team in the NHL, which is better than 23 or 24, depending on how my math goes, teams in the league, you say, well, they're great. And I say, yeah, but that's kind of where I'm at. All I care about is the cup. And that's, I think a lot of fans in a lot of sports fall under that umbrella as well. So that's kind of where I'm at. Thanks again to Conler and Associates CPAs for sponsoring all of our Periscopes this season. We will be back with goalie interference tomorrow. I'm going to try to do another Periscope on Thursday. No Periscopes over the weekend because I am not in Las Vegas over the weekend visiting my new nephew, Mr. Jack, up in Seattle over the weekend. And then we will probably try and do something when they get back home. And then a lot of these games moving forward. Over under on 100 points. I will say the Golden Knights come up just short. I will say the Golden Knights finish the season with 99 points. And I think they're going to finish second in the division. Good night.